Hiking could be an activity that is appropriate for a family gathering, but it could also be a challenge that requires months of intensive training. In January 1959, a group of 9 Soviet hikers was led by an experienced hiker into the Ural Mountains, attempting to reach Mount Ortotin from the small settlement of Vizhai. However, something horrendous happened and they died. As some clues were uncovered, the entire incident did not seem like an accident. Some mysterious force may have played a part in the death of the 9 hikers. Hello everyone, let's investigate here. Today we will be talking about a case that happened 61 years ago in Russia. Dyatlov Pass Incident. This is the most bizarre case in Russian history. The incident was made into different versions in films, novels, and research papers, but until this day, no one can unveil the truth on what really happened to them. I've separated into 2 different parts due to the length of the story. So what happened in the Ural Mountains? How come Russian government had listed this incident as classified case? Let's rewind the time back to 1959. Russia is located in the northern part of Europe and Asia continents, and also the country with the largest land area in the world. It occupies about 1/8 of Earth's land area. Russia is also the largest country, the 9th most populous country. Igor Dyatlov was a 23-year-old radio engineering student at the Ural Polytechnical Institute, now known as the Ural Federal University. He loved hiking and climbing, and he conquered most of the snowy mountains in Russia. Dyatlov was an elite hiker and skier, and even had a Grade 2 National Hiker certification. He wanted to obtain a Grade 3 certificate, therefore he wanted to challenge the Ural Mountain and reach Mount Ortotin. Ortotin in Mansi, a transliteration in Russian Holetro, means death, so the mountain translated to Death Mountain. But to this 23-year-old elite climber, he seeked an exciting and unpredictable trip. He assembled a group of 9 fellow students to accompany him on a 16-day expedition that would cover 190 miles across the North Ural Mountains of Ortotin. The 8 men and 2 women all had Grade 2 hiker certification with ski tour experience, and after completing the upcoming expedition, they would receive what at the time was the Soviet Union's highest certification possible, a Grade 3 certification. After packing the climbing equipment, they took the map and diary and were set off to Ural Mountains. Who would have known that the hike they were about to start is full of unexpected dangers? On January 25th, 1959, it was winter time in Russia. The harsh weather definitely made the hike more difficult, but to these elite hikers, these are trivial matters. The group arrived at the train at the town of Ural, then took a truck to Vizhai, the last inhabited settlement before their trek. There, they purchased a loaf of bread to add to their supplies. On January 27th, they began their trek, and the next day, a member of a group, Yuri Yudin, complained of feeling unwell and returned to Vizhai. The group met a hiker named Semyon Zolotaryov, and he decided to join the crew on this expedition. Dyatlov had arranged with Yudin that he would send a telegram once the group had returned to Vizhai. On February 12th, the latest calculated date for the crew to return, Yudin did not receive a telegram from Dyatlov, but he stayed confident that the crew will make it back within the next few days. 4 days later, still nothing from the team. Yudin grew anxious and alerted the authorities. The head of the Ural Polytechnical Institute assembled a rescue team of students and teachers to look for the missing hikers. On February 20th, 1959, 8 days after the expected return date, a rescue team was assembled. The local police and some elite hikers joined on this rescue mission. More people joined to help on the search, and the size of the rescue team was around 2,000 people. Russian government deployed aircraft to help out with the search. On February 26, the rescue team finally found some clues. Just 3 miles below the summit of Mount Ortoten, the rescue team found the hiker's tent on the hillside with a slope of 15 degrees. The tent was facing the forest, which was found 1 mile away. Why would Dyatlov set the tent on the slanted slope, not in the forest? It was extremely dangerous to set the tent on the slope, because of an avalanche could easily kill all of them. According to the rescue team, the tent was cut in half, but from the inside. Within the tent were the group's belongings, including their shoes. These are the cuts on the tent. It definitely looked like the hikers were trying to escape the tent as quickly as possible. Outside the tent, there were 9 sets of footprints made by people who were wearing only socks, a single shoe, or even barefooted. It was a suicidal move if you exit the tent barefooted. The rescuers followed the footprints, some of which led down toward the edge of nearby forest 1 mile northeast of the tent. The rescue team came up with the theory that Dyatlov's team was sleeping in the tent, and they thought they were hit by an avalanche, so they escaped the tent quickly by cutting the tent open. With the personal belongings still in the tent, and the footprints toward the forest, the rescue team were almost 100% sure that they were hit by an unexpected avalanche. But here is the confusing part. It had been days since their expected return date. How come the footprints were still clearly shown on the ground? And from the look of it, there was never an avalanche. If so, the tent and the footprint would be fully covered by the snow. So what happened that caused them to escape the tent this quickly? Some of them did not even have the time to wear their shoes. Or did something else attack them? Let's go on and investigate a little more. The rescue team did not have time to come up with different theories as they found Dyatlov's diary and Krivonischenko's camera. The last entry in the diary was January 31st, and prior to this date, they were on schedule with their hike. But they encountered a snowstorm. Therefore, they had to deviate from the original route and set up the tent on the hillside. It is likely that something had happened to them on February 1st. There were 34 pictures in the camera, and the first 33 were all ordinary pictures. As you can see, the weather was extremely tough. But the 34th picture, the famous number 34. This picture had shocked the world when it was released to the public. Some said it is an UFO. Some said it was a mysterious weapon. And some even said it is the face of an alien. A lot of people interpreted this picture as some kind of supernatural force. The search team continued to search for Dyatlov's team, and on March 2nd, they finally found some of the members. At the edge of the forest, under a large pine tree, the rescuers found the remainings of a small fire and the shoeless bodies of Krivonischenko and Doroshenko, who were wearing only their underwear. Their bodies were neatly placed under the pine tree, and there were traces of bonfire nearby. Above the bodies, branches on the pine tree were broken to a height of 5 meters, indicating that at least one of the men had climbed up to look for something. Perhaps he was trying to locate the camp. On March 3rd, they found Dyatlov's body, and it was only 300 meters away from the pine tree. Dyatlov was laying on the ground, wearing a jacket from one of the two members below the pine tree. He wasn't wearing any hats, nor shoes, but just socks. 630 meters away from the pine tree, they found Zaneta Komogorova's body. She was laying on her side, wearing 2 hats and 3 layers of socks. On March 5th, between the two, Rustem Slobodin's body was found, and it was 480 meters away from the pine tree. He was lying down, wearing a hat and a shoe, and below his body, there was an ice sheet, meaning when he collapsed, he was still alive, and his body temperature had melted the ice into water, but was later froze into ice again. The bodies were all facing the tent, and it looked like they died on the way trying to make it back to the tent. These 5 bodies were quickly sent to the hospital for autopsy, and determined that all of them were frozen to death. The 2 members below the pine tree died first, and the forensics confirmed that they were bruises and cuts on their head and fingers, and there were blood stains around their eyes, nose, and lips, minor burn marks on their hands and feet, and one of them had partial finger tissues in the mouth. Slobodin had a fracture on the side of his skull. It seemed like his head was smashed by some metalware. According to the information, the police came up with the scenario on what happened to the team. Due to some life-threatening incident, the team ran towards the forest to hide, but they underestimated the terrible weather on the mountains during the wintertime. 2 members died first, and their clothes were appropriated by those who were still alive. As the rest tried to make their way back to the tent, none of them could bear with the extreme low temperature, and eventually were frozen to death. But this scenario did not explain where they got all these wounds. If the remaining 4 members were not found, the police would probably go with the scenario and close the case. But the remaining 4 bodies were discovered later, and this new discovery had everyone reconsidered on what really happened to the group. Despite the intensive searching, the rescuers did not find the remaining 4 expedition members until May 4th. They were located 75 meters further into the woods from the pine tree, and 3 of the 4 were found wearing more clothes than the others. Dubinina's foot was found wrapped in a piece of Krivonischenko's wool pants, and Zolotaryov was found wearing Dubinina's coat and hat. When the 2 members died by the pine tree, they were split into 2 teams. One tried to head back to the tent, while the other tried to find a temporary refuge. They knew it was a suicidal mission to try to head back to the tent under the extreme climatic condition. Sadly, neither teams made it. The police were ready to close the case and file it as an accident. It wasn't until autopsies were performed on all the expedition members that things took a turn toward the weird. Unlike the 5 members, these 4 did not freeze to death. Thibaut Brignoles had several fractures to his skulls and was severely deformed. Dubinina and Semyon Zolotaryov had major fractures to their chest, and their ribs had penetrated their hearts and lungs, but none of these bodies showed any signs of external trauma. The doctor described the force needed to cause the fractures as comparable to being hit by a car that is going 80 km per hour. Alexander Kolevtov had a broken neck, as if they had fallen from a higher ground. Bodies that did show signs of external trauma were that of Dubinina's and Zolotaryov. Dubinina was missing her tongue, part of her lips, part of her face, and a fragment of her skull bone, and soft tissues around the eye sockets and nose. The skin on her hands were macerated. Zolotaryov was missing both of his eyes and all fractured ribs. The search team was unable to find these parts. A large amount of radioactive residues were found on Dubinina's and Alexander's clothes, and all of their skins had this weird orange-yellowish color, and their hair had turned partially gray. Zolotaryov's camera was found, and the authorities stated that the camera film was soaked in the water for too long and was completely destroyed. Therefore, they could not access the pictures. But in 1990, the pictures in the camera were published, and the reason why they did not release the pictures was that they were disturbing content and it will cause anxiety to the public. But is that really why? Or is the Russian government trying to hide any secrets? Let's go ahead and look at these pictures. As you can see, most of them were unclear as they were taken during the night. The third picture clearly showed that there were some kind of objects on the branch glowing, and it looked almost like a flying object. The 7th picture and the 11th picture looked unrelated, just some kind of light source in the sky. But these actually showed that something mysterious appeared in the sky on that night, and this mysterious object can glow. According to the first picture, this glowing object was really close to Zolotaryov. When these pictures weren't released to the public, the residents that were living below the Ural Mountains stated that they had seen some flying orange objects in the sky from February to March of 1959. The local weather reports did clearly record these bizarre sights as well. As these appalling clues were uncovered to the public, the police decided to reopen this case. There were no animal bite marks on the bodies, so the police suspected the Mansi tribe. The Mansi tribe is located beneath the Ural Mountains with a population of a couple thousand people, but after extensive research, nothing was found. When the police reported these bizarre pictures to their superior, the only command they received from the superior was, "Stop the investigation at instant." In May 1959, Russian government stopped any further investigation and declared that Dyatlov's expedition team encountered a powerful unknown force, resolved in an expedition accident. No one was responsible for this incident, and any related reports became classified files. Of course, no one can accept this conclusion, since there were so many unexplained clues, so this had many people dying to find out the truth. In the next video, we will be going over different theories and trying to uncover the truth. Maybe there is a mysterious force or even extraterrestrial creatures were involved. We will find out in part 2 of this story.